You can always tell when a culture is playing a very serious game by the way it talks about its God. Not a dancer, not a dreamer, not the great cosmic actor who dissolves into his own play just for the joy of forgetting. No, this God is a craftsman, a potter, a father who stays separate from the clay he molds, watching from above with the stern attention of someone who means every word he says. And Christianity, perhaps more than any other tradition, perfected this seriousness. It built a universe where everything hinges on a single distinction. God is God, and you are absolutely not. A line so firm, so unbridgeable, that it sets the entire mood of existence. You are created, he is not. You are dust, he is eternal. You are the child adopted, mind you, not born, and he is the Father whose approval is both the promise of salvation and the threat of its opposite. In the Hindu story, the universe is a game of hide and seek. The one becomes the many, forgets itself, and laughs when it wakes up. But in the Christian story, the one never forgets who he is. Only you forget. And forgetting is not a joke here. It's a tragedy, a rebellion, a fall that echoes through every inch of your existence. Because in this worldview, you are not an expression of the divine playing out its own possibilities. You are a creature who can betray, a creature who can disobey, a creature whose choices are so staggeringly important that angels and devils watch you like spectators at a cosmic trial. Your heart, your will, your temptations, everything becomes evidence. And so life becomes weighty. Not a dance, but a drama. Not a playground, but a battlefield where good and evil are not two sides of one cosmic coin, but enemies locked in eternal seriousness. Evil is not a mask God wears for the fun of contrast. It's malice. It's rebellion. And if it tempts you, well, there are consequences. Not symbolic ones, not metaphorical ones. Absolute, eternal, non-negotiable consequences. Imagine growing up inside a universe where even sparrows, tiny, trembling things, are noticed by the all-seeing eye of heaven. If a sparrow matters, imagine what you must mean. The weight of being watched by infinity. That does something to a person. It creates the feeling that every step matters. Every thought matters. Every hidden impulse is written somewhere in a ledger you can't see, reviewed by a judge you can't ignore. In a worldview like this, you don't simply live, you perform. You don't simply breathe, you justify your breathing. And before you ever commit a sin, you inherit a story. A story where the world is cracked, your nature is flawed, and salvation is always possible, but never guaranteed. This is the atmosphere of Christianity's karma, a universe not of rebirths, but of responsibility. A universe where the stakes feel impossibly high because the God who made it isn't playing. At least, that's how it appears at first glance. But stay with the story. Because behind the stern face of this father, something else is hiding. Something that makes the whole drama wobble, just a little, at the edges. If part one is the stage, part two is the trapdoor beneath it, the moment the creature, newly molded from clay, decides to stand up and take control of the script. Christianity calls this the fall. Not a stumble, not a mistake, a cosmic mutiny. Pride, they say, was the original sin. The subtle whisper inside the human heart that says, "I'll handle this myself." And from that whisper, everything else unravels. Because once you decide to control life, you can never stop controlling. It's like the sorcerer's apprentice. Once the broom starts carrying water, you're stuck with a flood that refuses to end. You must keep managing, fixing, planning, repenting, improving. You must stay vigilant, awake, moral, pure. You're responsible now. You asked for control, so the universe hands you the steering wheel and wishes you good luck on the ice. This is the strange karma of Christianity. The moment you try to be God, you discover you're not even good at being yourself. So Christianity gives you a solution. A beautiful, impossible solution. It says you must be spontaneous again, innocent again, loving by nature, not by effort. You must follow the law with a pure heart, not out of fear. You must love God freely, not because you're told to, but because you simply do. But how can you love on command? How do you obey the instruction to be effortless? It's like being told to relax forcefully or to be natural on purpose. It turns your mind into a pretzel. Christianity is full of these divine paradoxes. You must surrender your will, but only if you choose to. You must be childlike, but deliberately. You must love God because He said so. Every spiritual instruction in this tradition hides a second instruction beneath it. Do this voluntarily. And so begins the exhausting dance. You try to trust. You try to surrender. You try to stop trying. You chase innocence as if it's a merit badge, forgetting that innocence only exists when no one is looking. But the harder you work to purify yourself, the more you notice the stain. The more you try to be humble, the more pride creeps in through the back door, whispering congratulations. You perform goodness, then feel guilty for performing. You search your heart, only to find the very motives you hoped weren't there. It's a strange loop, a spiritual Mobius strip, and the guilt piles up. Because if Adam's sin was pride, your sin is noticing your pride. Your failure is noticing your failure. Christianity tightens the bind until it becomes almost unbearable. You must be good, but you can't be good. You must trust, but you can't trust. You must surrender, but you can't surrender. This is the genius of the tradition, its hidden mechanism. It takes your ego and stretches it until it snaps, revealing the one thing the ego cannot bear to see: its own inability to control anything, not even its own virtue. And in that moment, you glimpse a strange truth. You weren't meant to win the game. You were meant to see that you were the one inventing it. Stay with this, because the next part is where the whole drama turns inside out. There comes a moment in every spiritual story when the symbol stops being a symbol and becomes a mirror. In Christianity, that moment is the cross. It's not a piece of jewelry, not a logo, not even a historical event pinned neatly to one afternoon in Jerusalem. It is the moment the world holds up its suffering and quietly asks you, what are you going to do about this? Because in the Christian imagination, the cross is not just His suffering, it is yours. It is the whole world's. Every pain, every cruelty, every exploitation, every creature that dies so another may live, it all gets collected into one impossible image. A man nailed to a piece of wood by the very beings he came to save. And suddenly, you're not just a spectator, you're implicated. Not because you're wicked in some cartoonish fire and brimstone sense, but because you can't live without taking life. Even the lettuce you chew must be torn from its roots. The bread you eat comes from crushed wheat. The wine you drink from grapes squeezed into nothingness. Life feeds on life, and Christianity refuses to let you look away from this. This is why the Eucharist is so haunted and so beautiful. In one gesture, it reveals the entire mechanism. You live because something dies. You breathe because something breaks. You rise because something falls. And just when you begin to feel the weight of this truth pressing on your chest, Christianity adds another twist. This have I done for thee. What doest thou for me? It sounds like a question, but it's really a trap. Gentle, devastating, unavoidable. Because whatever answer you give, you feel it isn't enough. How could it be enough? If you try to repair the world, you discover your repairs cause new cracks. If you give to one person, you neglect another. If you save one life, you sacrifice another resource. If you devote yourself to service, you inevitably become proud of your devotion. You pull one thread and three more unravel. And so the guilt grows. Not because you are especially sinful, but because the very structure of existence refuses to play fair. Every attempt to do good reminds you of the good you can't do. Every act of compassion reminds you of the limits of your compassion. No matter how much you try to atone, something inside you knows you cannot pay the price. This is the point Christianity pushes you toward. Not punishment paralysis, a place where the ego sinks under the weight of impossible responsibility. A place where every solution becomes another problem, wearing a different mask. A place where you want desperately to make things right, yet every move only deepens the entanglement. And when you finally hit that wall, when you truly see that you cannot save yourself, cannot cleanse yourself, cannot uncrucify the world, something begins to crack. Not in the world, in you. A small fissure opens in the armor of the separate self, and through it, something light begins to shine. But Christianity won't name it yet. It waits, it watches. It lets you sit there in the impossibility of your own goodness until something inside you finally whispers, if I can't fix this, then who is the I that's trying? That question, soft, trembling, almost accidental, is the hinge on which the entire tradition turns. There's a moment in every great spiritual story when the hero stops fighting. Not because the battle is won, but because something inside them finally understands the battle can't be won at all. Christianity brings you to that moment, gently, ruthlessly, with the precision of a master teacher who knows that enlightenment often begins as exhaustion. You've tried to be good. You've tried to surrender. You've tried to love, to trust, to obey, to rise above your own contradictions. But every effort bends back on itself like a boomerang, returning to show you the one thing you don't want to see, the you who is trying. The ego stands revealed not as the villain, not as the hero, but as the imposter who keeps breaking into the house and calling the police on itself. This is the genius of Christianity's impossible demands. They don't crush you to punish you. They crush you to reveal you. The moment you reach the end of your will, you begin to notice the strange silence underneath it. A silence that feels like a pause in a play when the actors forget their lines and suddenly remember they're actors. And this is where the Christian drama, so severe, so serious, accidentally cracks into comedy. Because the moment the ego collapses, something starts laughing. Not mockery, not madness, a cosmic kind of laughter. The kind that Dante heard when he said the angels' music sounded like the laughter of the universe. A laughter that isn't aimed at you, but includes you, the way the ocean includes the wave, and the sky includes the wind. When the ego breaks open, you don't fall, you dissolve. And in dissolving, you discover the one thing the ego was built to hide. You were never separate. Not from God, not from life, not even. There is a moment, quiet, almost embarrassing, when the whole Christian drama begins to shimmer at the edges. You've wrestled with guilt. You've wrestled with duty. You've wrestled with the impossible command to love freely on command, to surrender intentionally, to stop trying by trying very hard. And just when you are ready to accept your fate as a cosmic failure, something in the story tilts. It happens not in the fire and fury of hell, nor in the stained glass glow of heaven, but in something far smaller, a twinkle, the faintest little spark in the father's eye. It's the same twinkle every parent has when the child, after weeks of climbing, finally crawls out of the playpen they were forbidden to leave. Half of the parent is furious. The other half is delighted, because the rebellion means the child is growing. And suddenly, the sternness of Christianity begins to look strangely like a mask. A very convincing one, yes, but a mask nonetheless. Because if the universe were truly tragic, the story would have ended with despair. But it doesn't. It ends with a kind of cosmic laughter, the laughter Dante heard among the angels, the laughter behind every Alleluia. A laughter that doesn't mock, but liberates. A laughter that says, You took the drama seriously enough to experience it fully, and now you're ready to step backstage. This is where the karma of Christianity breaks open. The guilt, the striving, the impossible commandments, these were never punishments. They were pressure, necessary pressure, the kind that squeezes the ego until it cracks, revealing that the one who tried so desperately to save themselves was never the real you at all. The ego was the mask. The guilt was the glue that held it together. And grace was what seeped through the cracks when the mask began to crumble. You were never meant to perfect yourself. You were meant to exhaust yourself. Not exhausted as in defeated, but exhausted as in finished, done. The little self finally says, I can't. And in that moment, something larger answers, good, you don't have to. It's a strange liberation, a soft, dissolving kind. Like waking from a nightmare you were convinced was real, only to discover it was just a story you were caught inside. And when you wake, the world doesn't change. You change. You no longer move through life as someone trying to pass a divine exam. You move through it the way a dancer moves through music, lightly, playfully, without demanding certainty. You see the tragedy, yes, but you also see the play behind it, the divine mischief, the cosmic improvisation. You finally understand that the Father's stern voice was part of the script, but the laughter was the truth. And so we arrive here, you and I, at the end of this long, winding reflection. Not with instructions, not with a moral checklist, not with a sermon, but with a simple question, one that Christianity itself has been whispering beneath its seriousness all along. Where in your life are you still trying to be spontaneous on purpose? Where are you still trying to control the very thing that wants to dance? If you feel brave enough, share it in the comments. Not for confession, not for judgment, but because naming the bind is the first step toward loosening it. And who knows, your insight might be the line someone else needed to hear to crack their own mask just a little wider. Because behind every mask, every guilt, every struggle, there is a twinkle waiting to be noticed. If you want revisions, sharpening, or expansion anywhere, just tell me.